All right, picture this. You're kicking back on the couch, totally engrossed in the latest season of your favorite show. And somehow, you're actually becoming fluent in English while doing it.
Sounds a little too good to be true, doesn't it?
Right. But it might not be as far-fetched as it seems. Today, we're looking at how Netflix can actually be a really effective way to learn English, no matter what level you're starting at.
It's funny, we often think about language learning as this rigid, textbook-focused thing, but it doesn't have to be that way at all.
Totally agree. We're all about finding smarter and more fun ways to learn. I mean, wouldn't you rather learn new phrases from, like, Stranger Things than from some dusty old textbook?
Absolutely. It's about using something you're already into as a chance to learn.
So why does this actually work? Using TV shows for language learning, I mean.
Well, one of the biggest reasons is that you see language used in real-life scenarios on TV, right? So it helps you understand what words and phrases actually mean, unlike those isolated examples you get in textbooks.
It's like when you hear someone on a show say break a leg. You immediately get that. It's like wishing someone good luck, not literally telling them to, well, break a bone. You wouldn't get that from just a vocab list.
Exactly. And you also get exposed to different accents, slang, idioms, all that stuff that makes a language feel real and natural, things you just won't find in most textbooks.
And don't forget about the visual cues, too. Facial expressions and body language.
Yeah.
All that. It adds a whole other level of understanding.
Oh, for sure. It's almost like having someone there on screen, kind of interpreting things for you, helping you understand the more subtle ways we communicate.
All right, so say we're sold on this idea. How do we pick the right shows? There are just so many choices out there.
That's true. But that's also where the fun comes in. Think of it as choosing your own language learning adventure. If you're just starting out, you want shows with simple language and clear pronunciation.
So something like Peppa Pig.
Exactly. Or Friends is a classic for a reason. The language is easy to follow, pronunciation is clear, and you can always turn on subtitles if you need them.
What about for those of us who are a bit more advanced?
If you're at an intermediate level, shows like Stranger Things or The Crown are great options. You get a good mix of casual and formal language, and the stories themselves are interesting enough to keep you hooked.
So you're challenged, but not completely lost.
Exactly. And then for anyone who's already pretty fluent, shows like Suits or House of Cards can be a great way to push your understanding further, expand your vocabulary. They're fast-paced and use a wider range of vocabulary.
It's like leveling up in a language learning game.
That's a great way to put it. But since we're talking about extra help, we have to talk about subtitles.
Ah, yes, subtitles. Good or bad when you're learning English?
It really depends on how you use them. It's best to think of subtitles as a tool. For beginners, watching with subtitles in both English and your native language side by side can be super helpful. You can connect the meaning, pronunciation, and spelling all at once.
Like a cheat sheet for language learning.
Exactly. As you get more comfortable, you can switch to just English subtitles. This forces your brain to work a bit harder to recognize the words, figure out what they mean from the context.
And then the ultimate challenge is watching with no subtitles at all.
Right. That's the real test of how much you can understand without any visual aids.
So no matter how you use subtitles, there's one thing that's really important if you want to get the most out of learning English from watching TV.
And what's that?
You have to actively engage. Don't just passively watch. You got to be actively trying to improve your vocabulary and understanding of how language works in real situations.
I completely agree. Get yourself a notebook, write down any new words or phrases you come across, and pay attention to how they're used. This is where the context becomes really important. Like the casual phrases you hear on Friends, those are going to be totally different from the formal language used in The Crown, for example.
So it's not just about memorizing words. It's about learning how to use them properly in different situations.
Exactly. It's like having a guide to help you navigate all the different ways people talk in English.
Okay, so we've covered vocab. Now what about pronunciation? Any tips on how to sound more like a native speaker?
One of the best things you can do is actually try to imitate how the actors pronounce words and phrases. Pick a line you like, pause the show, and repeat it out loud, trying to match their tone, rhythm, and accent.
Like having a pronunciation coach right there in your living room.
Exactly. There are some good tools out there too, like the language learning with Netflix extension that lets you slow down the dialogue so you can really catch those tricky sounds.
We've covered vocabulary, pronunciation, even subtitles. But there's another aspect of this whole Netflix and learn thing that I think is really cool.
I think I know what you're going to say. Cultural immersion, right?
You got it. Language and culture are completely tied together, and TV shows can give you a glimpse into the lifestyles, humor, and even traditions of different English-speaking countries.
Exactly. You could be learning about British manners and culture from watching Downton Abbey, or getting a feel for American family life and humor from Modern Family.
Like taking a virtual trip without even leaving your couch.
Right, and that deeper understanding of the culture can actually help you improve your language skills too. You start picking up on those unwritten rules of communication, the kind of things textbooks just can't teach you.
So we've talked a lot about how cool it can be to learn English from watching TV shows, but how do we actually make it happen? How do we turn just watching TV into real learning?
Well, first of all, don't be afraid to hit that pause button and rewind. If there's a word or phrase you don't understand, take a moment to really break it down. Repeat it, use it in a sentence, really engage with it.
Don't let the words just go in one ear and out the other.
Exactly. Another good tip is to use flashcards. There are some really great apps out there, like Anki, that make it easy to make flashcards with the vocab you pick up from shows.
It's like a vocab boot camp, but way more fun than traditional flashcards.
You got it. And don't forget to test yourself. After an episode, take a couple of minutes to think about what you learned. Do you remember those new words and phrases? Could you follow the story? It's an easy way to make sure you're really learning and remembering what you watched.
It's like having a built-in progress tracker.
Exactly. And speaking of keeping track, let's get to some specific shows that can be really helpful for learning English.
Okay, hit us with your top recommendations.
Well, gotta start with Friends, right? It's perfect for getting comfortable with everyday English conversation and getting a taste of American humor.
Who doesn't love a good laugh while they learn?
Exactly. Then there's The Crown, which is awesome for immersing yourself in that more formal British English. Plus, you get a bit of a history lesson along the way.
Two birds with one stone: language and history.
Exactly. And if you're into mystery, Stranger Things is a great one. The story is super engaging and the dialogue is really captivating.
Perfect for those who like a little suspense with their language learning.
For sure. If you want something more fast-paced and funny, check out Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The dialogue moves quickly, which is great for improving your listening comprehension.
Plus, it's just hilarious.
And last but not least, if you're ready for a challenge, Sherlock is a must-watch. The language is sophisticated, and the stories are incredibly engaging.
It's like a mental workout for your English skills.
Absolutely. These are just a few ideas, though, to get you started. There are so many great shows out there that can help you with your English. The key is to find things you genuinely enjoy and dive right in.
That's so true. And the best part is, you're not just passively watching. You're really engaging with the language and the culture.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that learning a language is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. There will be times you feel stuck, and that's perfectly normal. But it's important to celebrate those wins you have along the way, and no matter how small they seem.
Like finally being able to watch a whole episode without subtitles and understanding everything.
Precisely. Those small victories help keep you going and remind you that you're making progress. So find ways to keep track of your progress, maybe through journaling, recording yourself speaking, or just noticing how much easier it's getting to understand your favorite shows. And above all, have fun with it.
Because when you're enjoying the process, that's when the learning really sticks.
Completely agree.
Okay, we've covered a lot today, from why TV shows can be such a great way to learn English, to specific shows you can watch, to tips on how to actually make it work. But before we move on, there's one last important thing I want to bring up.
Oh, what's that?
Personalization. We don't all learn the same way, right? So what works for one person might not work for someone else.
You're absolutely right. It's not one size fits all.
Exactly. So in the next part of this, we'll dive into that idea of personalization a bit more. Talk about how to choose shows that really match your interests, how to set realistic goals, and how to create a learning routine that fits into your life.
Sounds good to me.
Me too.
Uh-huh.
Because in the end, it's all about finding what works for you and making this learning journey your own. But for now, think about this. What is it about your favorite shows that keeps you coming back? Is it the fast-paced dialogue, the complex storylines, the humor? Because those are the very things that can make you a better learner.
It's about turning the things you already enjoy into powerful tools for learning.
Exactly. So until next time, keep watching, keep learning, and most importantly, keep having fun.
Welcome back to our exploration of learning English with Netflix.
And we're getting to the really fun part, figuring out how to make this work for you. After all, we don't all learn in exactly the same way, right?
No, absolutely not. It's kind of like finding the right pair of shoes, you know?
Yeah.
You wouldn't just grab the first pair you see, would you? You try on different styles, see what feels good, what you like, what actually works for you. Learning a language, it's a lot like that.
I love that. So let's talk about shows. There are so many genres out there, like comedies, documentaries, historical dramas, sci-fi, the list goes on. Where do we even begin?
I think the best place to start is with what you already like to watch. Think about the shows you find yourself binge watching. Those are the ones that are going to hold your interest. And that's key when it comes to learning.
Because, let's be real, if you're bored, you're not going to keep watching.
Exactly. It doesn't matter how educational something is. If it's not grabbing your attention, you're not going to stick with it. So if you're a history buff, maybe go for historical dramas like The Crown or Vikings. If you're all about comedy, shows like Friends or Brooklyn Nine-Nine could be great for you.
And what about us sci-fi fans?
Stranger Things or Black Mirror, maybe? The important thing is to choose things that you're already passionate about. That way, learning feels less like work and more like fun.
Like sneaking in some learning while you enjoy your favorite shows.
That's the idea. Another thing that's super important is setting goals that you can actually reach. You don't want to make things too hard for yourself right out of the gate, or you'll get discouraged.
Yeah, that's how you burn out. It'd be like trying to run a marathon when you haven't even gone for a jog yet.
You got it. Start small, get some momentum going, then slowly start challenging yourself more as you go. Maybe at first, your goal is to just watch one episode a week with English subtitles. And then as you get more comfortable, you can watch more or try understanding more without relying on the subtitles as much.
So like leveling up in a language learning game.
That's a great way to look at it. And speaking of fitting this into your life, you don't need to completely rearrange your schedule to make time for learning English with Netflix.
Life's already busy enough as it is.
I know, right? So look at your daily routine. See if you can find those little pockets of time where you can fit in some learning. Maybe it's 30 minutes before you go to bed or during lunch or even while you're doing chores around the house.
You know, I found I actually learn best when I'm doing something mindless, like folding laundry. It's like my brain is free to just absorb the language without any distractions.
Interesting. I guess the key is to experiment a little. Find what works for you, then make it a regular thing. Even if it's just 15 minutes a day, that consistent exposure to the language is really going to make a difference over time.
It's about strengthening that language muscle, one episode at a time. But even with the best plan, there will be times when we hit a wall, right? Maybe we get stuck on a certain accent or there's a bunch of new words we just don't get. What do we do when that happens?
Well, that's where those resources we talked about come in. Don't be afraid to use tools and reach out for support to get through those tough parts.
We don't have to do this all on our own, right? There's a whole community of people out there who are learning English too.
That's right. So first things first, the pause button is your friend. If you hit a word or phrase that you don't understand, don't just skip over it. Pause, look it up, write it down, even say it out loud a few times. That will help you remember it.
It's like a built-in study break right in the middle of your show.
Exactly. And if it's a particular accent that's tripping you up, turn on the subtitles. Even if you're at a more advanced level, don't hesitate to use any tools you have available.
Work smarter, not harder, right?
Right. And speaking of tools, there are some really fantastic apps and websites out there that can really help you learn. Apps like Duolingo or Babbel offer structured lessons and exercises to help you build a strong foundation in grammar and vocabulary.
And a lot of them feel like you're playing games, which makes learning a lot more fun.
Exactly. Don't forget about online dictionaries and translators either. Those can be super helpful for unfamiliar words or phrases, but one of the absolute best resources, honestly, is
Other people.
Bingo. Connecting with other language learners, whether it's through online forums, language exchange programs, or even just casual conversation groups, that can provide a ton of support, motivation, and accountability.
It's true. Sometimes all you need is someone to cheer you on or share a helpful tip.
That's so true. And it can really help to surround yourself with the English language as much as possible, even if it's just online. Follow English-speaking accounts on social media, listen to podcasts, try watching YouTube videos or the news in English.
It's about immersing yourself in the language. And the more you do that, the more natural and effortless it will feel.
Exactly. And as you get more comfortable, don't be afraid to challenge yourself by actually speaking with native English speakers, whether it's online or in person. Those real-world interactions are where the real learning happens.
Because that's where you can put all your hard work and practice to the test.
That's right. Don't let the fear of making mistakes hold you back either. Mistakes are actually a good thing. It means you're learning and stretching yourself. Embrace them.
Just part of the journey.
Speaking of the journey, it's interesting to think that language learning never really ends. There's always more to learn, new expressions to discover. You can always work towards a higher level of fluency.
It's a path that keeps unfolding.
All right. Exactly. And one of the great things about using Netflix to learn English is that it keeps the process fresh and exciting. There are always new shows to check out, new stories to get invested in, new characters that you might end up loving.
It's almost like an endless supply of material.
Yeah.
But even with all the resources and strategies, there's one thing that's absolutely crucial for success.
I bet I know what you're going to say. Consistency.
You nailed it. Because learning a language isn't about cramming in a few hours here and there. It's about making it a regular part of your life, making that effort day after day, even when you don't feel like it.
It really is like going to the gym. You know, one workout isn't going to magically transform you. It's that commitment over time that really brings results.
I like that. So when it comes to learning English through Netflix, consistency doesn't mean you have to spend hours and hours glued to the TV every day. Even just 15-20 minutes of focused watching and engaging can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. The key is to find what works for you and then make it a habit.
So just to quickly recap what we've covered. Tailoring your approach to fit your learning style, setting realistic goals, having a routine, and utilizing all those helpful resources out there. But really, when it comes down to it, it's all about one simple thing.
Just starting.
Exactly. Pick a show, hit play, and get lost in it. You'll be surprised at how much you learn while you're being entertained.
And you might even find a new favorite show while you're at it.
That's always a plus. All right, before we wrap up this part of the discussion, here's something to think about. Take a look at your Netflix queue. Are there any shows that you could start watching with a language learning lens? It could be something you've already seen and loved or something brand new. The idea is to start thinking about the time you spend watching TV as a chance to not only enjoy yourself, but also boost your language skills.
Turn passive watching into active learning, right? And have some fun while you're doing it.
Exactly. So, until we meet again, enjoy watching, keep learning, and remember that the world of English fluency is right at your fingertips. All right, welcome back to our final look at learning English with Netflix. We've covered finding the right shows, creating a personalized plan, and using all those helpful resources. But now, let's talk about the best part.
Seeing the results of all your hard work, it's so rewarding to know your efforts are paying off.
It really is. But you know, sometimes the results can be a little subtle, especially when you're just starting out. It's not always a big, obvious aha moment where everything just clicks. So how do we actually keep track of our progress and celebrate those wins, even the little ones?
Well, one really simple but effective method is keeping a language journal. Nothing fancy, just a notebook where you jot down new words or phrases you come across. You could also summarize what you learned from an episode, write about your thoughts on your progress, things like that.
I like that, like a personal logbook for your language learning journey. You could look back and see how far you've come.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to have fun with it. You know, make it your own. Draw pictures to help you remember words, write little conversations using the phrases you've learned, maybe even quiz yourself.
It's all about figuring out what works best for you, right?
Exactly. And speaking of finding what works, another good way to track your progress is recording yourself speaking English.
Wait, you mean like talking to myself?
Well, yeah, in a way. But the idea is to pick a topic, anything really, like summarize a scene you just watched, talk about your day, whatever, and then listen back to the recording and see what sounds good and where you could improve.
That sounds kind of scary, honestly, but I can see how it would be helpful. It's like holding up a mirror to your pronunciation and fluency.
You got it. Don't worry, the more you do it, the easier it gets. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become with hearing yourself speak English.
And imagine being able to compare those recordings over time. You could actually hear yourself getting better.
Exactly. Those are the moments that make all the effort so worth it. But some of the best wins are the ones you feel, rather than the ones you see or hear. You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Think about that feeling you get when you can watch a whole episode without subtitles and understand everything. Or when you use a new phrase in a real conversation without even thinking about it.
Oh, or when you hear a word in the world that you just learned from a show, it's like, hey, I know that word.
Exactly. Those are the moments when you realize that English is becoming a part of you. It's not this foreign thing you're trying to master anymore, but something you can use to communicate, connect with people, experience the world in new ways.
I love that. And those are the wins we really need to celebrate, right? Because they keep us going.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up, here's one last thought for you. Learning English with Netflix, it's not just a method or a technique. It's more like a whole different way of thinking about things. It's about enjoying the process, finding ways to make it fun, and celebrating every step of the way.
It's about seeing the world through a new lens, one that's shaped by language and culture.
Exactly. So keep watching, keep learning, and keep having fun.
And be sure to share your favorite English learning shows with us in the comments. We'd love to hear what works for you.
Until next time, happy watching.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into learning English with Netflix. We hope you found it helpful and, most importantly, we hope you have fun on your language learning journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep practicing, and remember, every episode is a step closer to fluency.